Okay. Hello, this is me again. I have not done this in quite a while. Although this time it is. I'm just kind of doing my own original thing. I don't know if it's original, not really. I wouldn't think of it like that. I am going to be explaining and reading off descriptions of stand abilities from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. I just thought it would be funny. Here it goes. King Crimson. This explanation is done by Bitoku Kishi. Let's use Nameless One's timeline, where Team 1 is the time point at which King Crimson initiates its power, and T2 when its power ends. And what actually happens in this case is that the two time points get crashed together. There's actually no time anymore along the timeline between these 2 points of King Crimson's power being activated and then running out. The time T2 basically gets pulled back to Team 1, eliminating all the time points in between. And that's really all that happens. There's a few points to make about the effect this has, though. Sorry, it's 1 a.m. Nobody actually loses their memories in this section of time, or has a memory directly affected in any way. Why they can't remember it is because it didn't actually happen anymore. Saying people forget about it isn't really even applicable, since you can't really forget something that doesn't happen. Any event or effect that would have taken place during this erased period of time also does not exist anymore, since you can't have results from an event that didn't happen. In other words, if someone is attacked or injured within this erased time and not outside of it, and since that attack / injury didn't happen anymore, any results would have happened from that event also do not happen. To put it simply, you can have effects without a cause. Erase the cause, and you erase the effects. The boss and King Crimson are affected in exactly the same way as everyone else by this time erasal. In other words, while the effects of any attacks against the boss within this erased period of time get effectively nullified, the effects from any of King Crimson's actions within that time are also erased as well. This is why he never bothers attacking Bucciarati directly within any of the portions of time he's erased. For instance, because the effects of him attacking Bucciarati's would be erased in exactly the same way as the effects of Bucciarati's attack on him getting erased. Note that what he does do instead is attack Bucciarati directly after the time erasal is complete. When Bucciarati is disoriented from the sudden movement shifts, which brings us to the last point. The location of things after the time erasal gets determined by the T2 time, not the T1 time. This is where it gets a little confusing, but it may help if you think of it as this way. Consider that what King Crimson does is basically, while he's remaining at T1, he reaches forward in time to T2 and drags up T2 point backwards to T1, collapsing all the time in between. This is why some parts of the comic show multiple frames of time simultaneously in the same frame to try to illustrate him collapsing time together. Effectively, the effects between T1 and T2 get nullified as a result, effectively crushed out of existence as the two time points are brought together, but all the location data at T2 and afterwards remain along the timeline intact. So you've got location data at T1 and then a different set of location data at T2, and the stuff in between is gone now because T2 now comes directly after T1. The result, you get people seeming like they've teleported to weird locations instead. You get people seeming like they teleported to weird locations instantly because of this. And in fact, that's basically what is happening. What is that? To comment on Nameless One's comparison to Dio's The World, it's actually extremely different from The World in both concept and effect. You can think of The World as basically just speeding itself up, and Dio up to incredibly fast speeds for a single moment of time, allowing Dio to do 5 seconds worth of stuff in a span of some incredibly short amount of time, real time. Some incredibly short amount of real time, like 0.001 milliseconds or something. King Crimson is actually messing with the entire timeline much more directly, and not really doing anything to itself at all, since the boss's time gets erased along with everyone else's. The only thing that makes this such an incredible ability for the boss is simply due to him being the one who gets to choose which piece of time gets erased and which ones will remain. God, I messed up so many times doing that. So here's another stand that I just wanted to also read about. Heavy weather. Heavy weather is an ability that unconsciously activates after Weather Report, the character, yes, Weather Report, recovers his memory stolen by Bucci who is the gay priest in Jojo that is obsessed with Steel's bone that turned into a green baby that can manipulate perspective. Unlike the rest of Weather Report's abilities, heavy weather is automatic, stemming from Weather's rage against humanity. According to Versus, with this ability active, it has the potential to destroy the ozone of the Earth. Here's one of the abilities of heavy weather: snail transformation. Heavy weather alters the refraction angle of the sun's rays entering Earth's atmosphere with Weather Report's ability to control the weather. As a result, rainbows manifest in the surrounding vicinity. Those who see the rainbows will perceive them as being a snail. Will perceive themselves as being a snail due to a natural subliminal effect created by the altered refraction angle. All animals are affected by the metamorphosis, aside from Weather Report. He was immune to the effect. Pucci theorizes that perhaps there is an image of snails being reflected within the sun's rays, or the sun reminds organisms of their prehistoric instincts. Go back to snail. Okay. The deep subliminal effect of the ability physically affects their bodies as well. The transformation can be either a progressive change into a giant snail hybrid, a breakdown into numerous snails, or an explosion into a cluster of snail eggs that hatch immediately. One can also begin to turn into a snail by physically touching one of the snails created, or an individual already turned into a snail. A partial transformation alone comes with a number amount of handicaps, such as getting stuck on surfaces, sluggish reactions and speeds, and the loss of strength because of the softening of the body. Moreover, the victims also become vulnerable to snail-eating predators and contact with salt, which dehydrates the body. Snails created through heavy weather, can procreate freely thanks to their hermaphroditism. I have never heard of that word, okay. The procreation is very fast and accelerates exponentially. Causing a rapid multiplication of snails, any person trapped inside a swarmed area is practically doomed to be touched at least once and begin their metamorphosis. If left unchecked, a swarm of snails will endanger whole cities. As discovered by Enrico Pucci, a blind person is immune to the effect of the stand, since they can't see the subliminal messages carried through the sun rays. This allowed Pucci to protect himself by having Whitesnake extract his sight. Regardless, once a person starts transforming into a snail, unless Weather himself is killed, the process is irreversible. Sometimes I just look back. Sorry. loud, probably. What the fuck? What was that sound? What sounds did I just make? Sometimes I just look back at Jojo and I don't know what is going on with this. I need to know what Araki was on while making while just making the stands themselves. I have no idea. Yeah, no. Now here is another stand that I believe to be like a bit goofy, I guess. Bohemian Rhapsody is an extremely powerful stand ability that can affect the entire world on a grand scale. The stand's range and indirect nature render it impossible to defeat through conventional means, allowing the user to hide in safety and watch the world around them fall into chaos. The first ability, Fictional Manifestation. Bohemian Rhapsody is able to bring fictional characters depicted in images into reality through media containing them. The types of characters brought into reality range from cartoon and anime characters to works of art and drawings. Any character brought to life will, in turn, disappear from the works they are featured in, from paintings and books to signs on the highway. Yes, they even took the male, like, stick man from the bathroom signs. As the stand draws powers from the original artist's creativity and passion put into works, the range of its ability is effectively infinite. Once a character is brought to life, they generally behave and act as they would within their own story. In addition, characters are made of the same material they came from, and thus take advantage of their original form to avoid damage and move more easily. However, characters can still be damaged by surprise attacks or fall victim to their original fates. Despite its tremendous power, Bohemian Rhapsody has a glaring flaw in that it indiscriminately brings any and all fiction to life. Thus, Weather Report managed to defeat Bohemian Rhapsody by creating a fictional character whose sole role in the story is to return all fictional characters to their original source, effectively blaming Bohemian Rhapsody to cancel itself. Oh. However, if a character happens to be destroyed in reality before this occurs, as Pinocchio is at, as it does happen to Pinocchio, they will not reappear within their source material. Second ability. Second feature, I don't know. story superimposition. The true danger of Bohemian Rhapsody lies in its ability to force regular people to live out fictional stories. When someone recognizes a character they like, either consciously or subconsciously, their soul, along with their stand, if applicable, is quietly and immediately separated from their body, though the victim's body continues to consciously act as normal. Their soul takes on the role of the character in question. Adopting their appearance and being forced to live out their fate. According to Pinocchio, this occurs because people secretly wish to live out their fantasies. It is impossible to change the course of the story one finds himself in. The story will continue to progress regardless of the victim's willingness to participate in, as fate itself will conspire to reenact its events, attempting to run or hide from other characters in the story. Is equally futile due to their ability to transform into the original material. The only way for a victim to restore their soul to their body and avert the story they're dragged in is to either destroy the original character or defeat the stand user himself. I think just because of this, I want to try reading one from part 7. I've never seen part 7, so I will pick a random one and hope that it is extremely weird. What is this? Okay. Tubular bells. Okay. Oh no, that one seems kind of boring actually. Not really wacky. Okay. Tattoo You. Tattoo You functions as an ability shared between the 11 men, greatly enhancing their teamwork and defense. This stand is unique in that 11 individuals share it. Okay. Body slide. Tattoo You allows the 11 men to transform into each other by using the tattoos on their back as portals, then reappearing through those tattoos at will. The men can exist in the same spot all at once, appearing as though they are merged together. It allows the men to hide inside each other in order to avoid attacks. Even if a member of the group dies with companions inside, those inside the tattoos are unharmed and can move the bodies to position themselves to attack. That one is not as wacky as the other ones. I need more like snail transforming stands. Or Okay. I got one. Okay. Different stand. Soft and wet. Soft and wet is a humanoid, close range stand. It possesses enhanced strength, demonstrating first when it breaks a large portion of an apartment wall with a single back kick, and is also capable of extremely rapid hand-to-hand combat. The extent of the damage it can inflict is limited. However, as it is unable to break through rock, its strength in melee exchanges compared to the other stands can be further demonstrated in the brief encounter of Yotsu Yagiyama's stand, I Am a Rock. Despite its volleys of fast-paced strikes, Soft and Wet easily avoided and overcame it with a single Ora articulated blow. I did not know that was a term. Okay. When its user transforms into a different person as a result of undergoing equivalent exchange, Soft and Wet is granted additional abilities as a result. Bubble generation. Soft and Wet generates star-embedded floating bubbles which must contact with its target to work effectively. Josuke can control the bubbles' movement and send them where they are needed. He can also choose the size of the bubbles he creates, ranging from small enough to fit between the bristles of a brush to big enough to contain an entire person. The bubbles are actually comprised of tiny cores vibrating at super high speeds, giving them the appearance of spheres. The bubbles also appear divided down the middle, with a visible seam connecting both halves, which reflects their hybrid nature. Josuke often takes advantage of his bubbles' physical properties. For example, their limited lifting power. People can scale floating cushions as smaller bubbles, while larger ones can carry a contained person over a short distance. The bubbles also have minimal resilience, allowing Josuke to trap enemies or hide allies inside giant bubbles, or to summon a bunch of smaller ones to soften or mitigate blows. Similar to regular soap bubbles, Soft and Wet's bubbles seem to be quite slippery as well. While Josuke has utilized his property to deflect strikes, quickly reposition himself into sillier things out of combat, like shaving without shaving cream. Okay. Sorry. In addition to this, Soft and Wet is able to create bubbles utilizing existing substances as demonstrated when it creates a temporary shield from the water bottle. As the story progresses, Josuke develops this ability. Early on, Josuke would mostly use only a single bubble, but later he is shown regularly conjuring dozens upon dozens of them with a quick flurry of strikes. Okay, next ability, Plunder. The signature ability of Soft and Wet's bubbles is to temporarily steal and contain physical properties, objects, and substances. If a bubble pops on contact with an object, it will take away a certain property from the object for a short amount of time. If it doesn't, it will store the property inside, allowing soft and wet to pop the bubble later, then transfer that property to another object. According to Josuke, soft and wet's ability cannot be used on himself. The ability's usage changes greatly over the course of the story. Early on, Josuke solely stole highly conceptual properties, like an object's friction or its very capacity to produce sound. I'm taking properties away from humans, such as sight and hydration. The corresponding body parts appear to burst like bubbles themselves. Joshu's eyes popped when he lost his sight. A woman lost hydration by having several small holes popped into her skin. After the beetle battle with Jobin Higashikata, Josuke resorts to stealing much simpler physical phenomena, like smells or the vibrations of his own voice. The one aspect of plunder Josuke has consistently utilized throughout the whole part is the ability to contain objects and substances. By the end of the story, when it ends up being almost the sole exclusive application of plunder, a simple swipe of soft and wet's bubble is enough to absorb things like water, fire, and gasoline. This also allows Josuke to easily extract small constituent. I have no idea, I've never said that word before. Parts of a larger object. For example, using just a single bubble to painlessly remove most of a live cat's fur or absorbing moisture from plant tissue. I need context for that. Okay, you did that. When taking individual items, Josuke often uses the bubbles to remotely carry them over a long distance. Okay, I'm not gonna... Okay, this is the last ability that I'm gonna do, I guess. So I don't want to spoil myself too much. Explosive pop. As a result of their hybrid nature, soft and wet bubbles retain some aspects of Killer Queen's explosibility. The bubbles can pop with enough force to cause damage at close range, able to crack plastic or burst in a person's eardrums. Sorry. Able to crack plastic or burst a person's eardrums. Josuke can also use this force to propel any small objects stored inside of his bubble in a given direction. For example, firing nuts and bolts at the enemy with enough power to pierce the skin. Soft and wet reaches the heights of its explosive potential when Josuke pries open a vault by detonating the bubbles wedged into the gap between the vault door and the wall. Later on, Josuke also learns to use the bubbles' explosive power to charge up their speed and launch them as high-velocity projectiles. He can detonate previously inert bubbles to give them a sudden burst of speed. In addition to this, Josuke is able to injure opponents by popping bubbles which have been embedded under their skin. An ability that one of the Aphex brothers remarked bears a striking resemblance to the late Kira's own technique. This can also be used on inanimate objects, demonstrated by Josuke when Josuke inflates a bubble into the surface of a desk to damage an enemy hiding below. I'm still thinking about the cat. Oh. I'm still thinking, why did he remove the fur from a cat? I need to see this. I need to see why he did do this? What? Josuke takes the opportunity of the emptier house to secretly get out and call Yasuo. Sneaking past the estate security camera by covering it with a nearby cat's fur. Using soft and wet. Okay. I really need to know what Rocky was on. What is... I got no idea. What is this man's childhood? I mean, I get that Fist of the North Star like inspired some of his stuff, but like part 3 and afterwards, what caused that? Why the snails? Why the cartoon characters, fairy tales, cats, fur removal, especially what he does to dogs? I have no idea what is. He has a rage against dogs, very, very much. I had no idea what to say. Yeah, I don't know. It just made me kind of speechless. I don't even know if this counts as an ASMR. Since I messed up a bunch of the words. So I never read these. I was just reading off my phone about this. I had no idea. I just wanted to kind of talk about King Crimson and heavy weather. Because, like, where? King Crimson, I just hear people having a bunch of confusion about his ability. Heavy weather. I had no idea where the snails came from. I have no idea. I'm just repeating myself at this point. I don't know if I'm gonna do stuff like this again. I don't know. I just thought this was kind of funny. I just thought of that. I'm gonna be honest, if one of y'all just like fell asleep to this, I have no idea what to do for you, I'm gonna be honest. Um, yeah, no, I don't really know how to end this off. I just wanted to talk about just weird stuff from Jojo, or just weird stands that I thought. I haven't really caught up to the manga. I haven't caught up to the anime either. I'm trying to right now. I'm almost done watching part 6. Yeah. I mean, so far it's been good. I still think about Poochie, a priest, becoming gay for like a vampire who's hundreds of years old. A vampire gives him his bone, and then Poochie, like 10 years later, gives the bone life, I guess, I don't know. Then the bone turns into trees, and the trees give birth to a green alien baby. That just manipulates perspective, or like has like a limit to it, I guess. I had no idea. I guess just like it can create like an exponential. I'll actually no, because it's not really exponential distance, it more like shrinks. Yeah, shrinks the user. Yeah. Just perspective, that's the easiest way I can probably try to explain it. I guess I don't know. Then the baby, the green baby, eats Poochie a little bit, I guess, then kind of fuses into Poochie. And then Poochie has to go to the Kennedy Space Center for some reason. I don't know why there. To quote unquote go to heaven. After that, I don't know because I'm still trying to watch the series. I did spoil myself a bit about the ending, although I don't really know what leads up to it. And it's probably gonna be some crazy stuff. I have no idea. I got no idea. I guess for Jojo, for me, I would have to say my favorite Joestar is definitely I say it's Joseph, and Joseph's my favorite. But my favorite part, for some reason, I have to say I liked part 4 quite a bit. Not too sure why. But I just kind of like that more. Part 5 is also pretty good. For kind of like different reasons. I don't know, probably if I do a rewatch, I might like part 5 more. Not really too sure. Mm. I did originally plan to try to mix in like regular ASMR with this, but I just kind of got invested in reading about the stands. So yeah, that was me just talking about Jojo. I guess if you watched it, good on you. I just felt like doing this. Yeah. Okay.